Okay, let's have a look at the charts of France, because that's another country that is very much impacted by this eclipse on the equinox, the solar eclipse on the equinox happening on the 21st. And so I wanted to have a look at this chart. Now, I rather like this chart for ancient France, right? So that goes right back to the 3rd of July, 987 with the Gregorian calendar. And you can see how much this eclipse will be affecting France. For a start, this particular chart of France has Mars conjunct Pluto in the final degrees of Virgo, which I think suits the whole France, bearing in mind one of the countries that had a revolution. There is kind of a revolutionary spirit in France, right? They are prepared to take quite severe action. We don't often see in the UK in terms of burning fires, burning tires and their strikes and that. Don't know how far they always get with this, but anyway, that's interesting. Now that, of course, Mars conjunct Pluto in the final degrees of Virgo is exactly triggered by the solar eclipse on the 21st, because that's in the final degrees of Virgo. So with that solar eclipse affecting Mars Pluto, imagine, that's very, very explosive, isn't it? So what could we see in France is a massive outbreak of hostilities. And what we know also happens in France is sometimes in Marseille, in areas with a large immigrant communities, things can also kick off because of perceived aggro towards the place. So we could see things kicking off on all sides in France, destabilizing the entire thing. And do remember, the Mars Pluto conjunction by France is also opposed by the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which is happening there in 0 degrees in the final degrees of Pisces. So France also massively influenced by the kind of anti-Western communist takeover represented by Saturn-Neptune. Now, in addition, in this chart for France, the Mars-Pluto conjunction in the final degrees of Virgo is also squaring up to the Moon, which is in Cancer, and a little bit out of orb Mercury retrograde in Cancer. Right, so that's also going to be triggering the Moon, which rules the midheaven. So also a crisis in leadership, failing leadership. You know, I don't think Macron's sort of new prime minister will last. We could definitely see a breakdown in terms of whole leadership structure going on there in France. Now let's have a look and see where your Uranus, which is don't think is affecting anything in this chart, is it? Let's just have a look. Uranus. Oh, wait. Yes. Uranus, of course, is on the 1st degrees of Gemini. And in the French chart, we have Jupiter, 1st degree of Sagittarius, conjunct Neptune in the final degrees of Scorpio. So Uranus is activating the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in ancient France's chart. So Uranus, the revolutionary spirit, and of course Jupiter conjunct Neptune, that shows a huge disillusionment in the political system, and it also does show a groundswell, a mass change in the public consciousness. Neptune is something that's a little bit subtle. Jupiter is people's beliefs, so I think people's beliefs in the political system, in politicians, totally changing in France, and this is going to lead to a radical shift in the direction of the country. So major transits affecting this particular chart of ancient France. Let's just check old Pluto. I don't think Pluto did trigger anything. No. So that's the chart of ancient France. Let's have a look at the chart of modern France, which is on the 6th of October, 1958. Here we have an Aries ascendant, which I think is quite, appropriate for France. So what's being triggered here? Well, at the time of the eclipse, Mars is conjunct that same Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. So isn't it interesting that both ancient France and modern France have a Jupiter-Neptune conjunction? A nice synergy there between old and new. And obviously Mars and Pluto, in this case, in the chart of modern France, Mars and Pluto are triggering the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. So that's triggered in ancient France by Uranus, and in modern France, the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Scorpio, triggered by Mars and Pluto. A big sign that there's a huge shift in the mentality, in the underlying beliefs of French people. You know, their anthem will tell you a lot about France. You know, formez vos bataillons, form your battalions, France. I think there's something very, very powerful stirring within the French consciousness. Something's happening very powerful at a grassroots level here. Very, very, very interesting. Also, Jupiter will be conjunct the Moon of modern France, the Moon, which is in the 4th house. We saw similar themes in the English chart, in the UK chart. Jupiter conjunct Moon, uprising, power to the people. The people are talking amongst themselves. They're becoming more politically aware, politically engaged. They're finding their voice, huge amount of free speech going on. The fourth house is the house of opposition to the government, so growing opposition to the government. Very, very interesting. And in modern France, again, this is huge. Transiting Uranus is conjunct Mars. Mars is in Gemini in France's second house. Transiting Uranus, this is the financial crisis that's going to be the trigger for everything. Second house is this house of finances, with Uranus triggering Mars there. It'll be quite a sudden and dramatic meltdown in French finances. Just checking, in France, the finances are ruled by Taurus, ruled by Venus. Just checking for any transits to Venus. Venus is in the first degrees of Neptune, so it'll be conjuncted in the first degrees of Libra, so it'll be opposed by Neptune and Saturn next year. So the Neptune-Saturn conjunction opposite Venus in France's chart will dramatically impact their finances and public services as well. So we're seeing a kind of breakdown in everything that's happening in France. Politically, total lack of faith in the system. Economically, a huge breakdown. And a definite empowerment of the people. Jupiter affecting the Moon, and Jupiter will be turning retrograde near the Moon, so it'll be quite influencing the Moon in the French chart for quite a long time. The Moon in the modern French chart rules the people, the populace, the land, the patriotism, so a big surge of patriotism in France. Okay, by the way, in the ancient France chart, we had Mars conjunct Pluto, which I said was really, really interesting because of this whole French revolutionary spirit and the fact that the French could become very dramatic, very animated, capable of rising up. In modern day chart of France, we have Mars, which is in the first degree of Gemini, square Pluto in the first degree of Virgo. So we have Mars square Pluto. So we have that theme, and that theme is being activated by Uranus in the modern day French chart. So I think this two incredible charts for France there. So many synergies between the ancient France chart and the modern day France chart, both showing the potential for France to reawaken and to reemerge from this crisis and to reclaim its destiny from these corrupt, rancid, disgusting politicians, right? Showing a big rising of revolutionary spirit. Similar to the U chart, we have power to the people, people becoming more politically aware, their knowledge expanding at a rapid rate, word of mouth spreading, people getting more energized. As I say, a lot of power in the resistance. We also see big financial troubles for France, but this could be an ideal lever in order to just blow this whole thing wide open. I did actually, if I have time, I have Macron's chart on here. This is chart France ancient. No, just check and see where Macron's is. These charts, these eclipse charts, have been absolutely fascinating. Okay, Emmanuel Macron, right? He has a sun at 29 degrees of Sagittarius conjunct Mercury at 29 degrees of Sagittarius. Obviously, this will be squared by the eclipse and also squared by the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, showing he doesn't know what he's doing. He's lost control of the narrative. He's severely weakened. He's under immense pressure from his party, from politics, from all sides. He's feeling very depleted, right? Anything else for his chart? Oh yes, for Macron's chart as well. His Sun-Mercury conjunction in the last degrees of Sag is opposite Jupiter, which is in the first degrees of Cancer. So his Jupiter is also affected. It's square by the Saturn-Neptune conjunction and by the eclipse. So he's anything he does is going to be too much, too little, too late. He's underestimated his opponents. He's overestimated his own power, and he's in a kind of power vacuum. In something quite dramatic could be happening there as well. Okay, so we see very, very interesting times for France and the UK. I did a video as well on the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk. I think this plays into the massive upswell of stuff that's going on. So, whew, guys. Quite a whirlwind of activity. Hope you enjoyed these blogs. Let's watch carefully. I'll get back to you quite soon because an awful lot is happening.